So you can start by just relaxing your body and slow your breathing down, nice and slow. You can bring your attention to Jesus inside of you. You can imagine that you're looking at him with eyes of love, and he's looking back at you with love. You can keep that slow breathing going. And you may notice distractions. As the distractions come up, you can just acknowledge them. Maybe tell yourself, I'm distracted by, or I'm worried about. And then just say, I trust you with this, Jesus. Or I release this to you, God. So just take a moment now in silence to notice those distractions and just release them to Jesus. Keeping that slow breathing going, you can keep acknowledging distractions as you notice them. Even during our conversation together, you can just acknowledge and release those. Keeping your body relaxed, your breathing slow, your awareness on Jesus inside of you. The Jesus that we are about to read his words, he's inside of you. And this first time reading through, you can just leave your paper in your lap if you want and just listen. As you're listening, imagine that you're there, hearing Jesus give this teaching, like you were right there in the crowd, listening to him say this. So I'm going to read this to you now from Luke 16. Jesus says, now there was a rich man, and he habitually dressed in purple and fine linen, enjoying himself in splendor every day. And a poor man named Lazarus was laid at his gate, covered with sores, and longing to be fed from the scraps which fell from the rich man's table. Not only that, the dogs also were coming and licking his sores. Now it happened that the poor man died and was carried away by the angels to Abraham's arms. And the rich man also died and was buried. And in Hades, he raised his eyes, being in torment, and saw Abraham far away and Lazarus in his arms. And he cried out and said, Father Abraham, have mercy on me and send Lazarus so that he may dip the tip of his finger in water and cool off my tongue, for I'm in agony in this flame. But Abraham said, child, remember that during your life, you received your good things, and likewise Lazarus bad things. But now he's being comforted here, and you are in agony. And besides all this, between us, there's a great chasm that has been set, so that those who want to go over from here to you will not be able, nor will any people cross from over there to us. And he said, then I request of you, Father, that you send him to my father's house, for I have 5 brothers, in order that he may warn them, so that they will not come to this place of torment as well. But Abraham said, they have Moses and the prophets. Let them hear them. But he said, no, Father Abraham, if someone goes to them from the dead, they will repent. But he said to him, if they do not listen to Moses and the prophets, they will not be persuaded, even if someone rises from the dead. Now, if you'd like, you can take your paper, or I've got it here on the screen. We're going to kind of transition. Again, keeping your breathing relaxed. keeping your awareness that the Jesus who gave this story, who just told this story, is inside of you. And for our meditation today, we're going to, let me get down here. There it is. We're going to start with, I've actually already put a teaching in here for us. Normally we start when we're doing tax, we identify a bunch of different teachings. And when you guys have already done this on your own, you may have identified some teachings. But I'm going to start with a teaching because I want to build from there. I want to take our time starting from when you have a teaching that you want to use these questions on, how you can build from that. And this teaching came from verse 19, where it says, "Now there was a rich man, and he habitually dressed in purple and fine linen, enjoying himself in splendor every day." I do want to take a step back and say this section is very rich, and also like a little bit, there's some parts that are difficult to understand. So we're going to zero in on this teaching today, but I think that we could probably pick 10 or 20 teachings and do this 20 times and come up with different, meditations about what Jesus is teaching us. So just to the caveat, just to say, I know that we're going in very focused on one verse and that there's a lot of breadth here that we're not touching on. But I think that's also part of the richness of the scripture, is how much breadth there is actually there. So the teaching here that we're going to dive into today is that God was not this man's truest and highest love. It's part of that's one of the teachings I drew from this. So the first question that we're going to explore. Now, I also want to say that the things we're going to talk about today are fairly self-reflective. In other words, you have to look in at your own internal heart. And it may be of a nature of something you don't want to say out in the group. Like, there's no pressure to say anything personal in the group if you don't want to. This is also a safe group. You're free to say anything you would like to say. So if you want to do self-disclosure, you can. If you just want to think about what you're experiencing personally, internally, you can do that too. So just to kind of give you an idea of where you can go with that. So the questions that we want to explore first was, now this is speculation, the text doesn't say this, but there are some clues in the text. What did this man love, or what was he attached to? So looking at verse 19 or anything else that you get from this section, if you want, as you think about that, what do you think it looks like this man loved? Comfort. Stuff. Comrade.
Prominence.
What did you say, Mari?
Being prominent.
Oh, yes. I have a lag on my keyboard here, so I can't tell if I'm misspelling until a couple minutes later. Prominence. Okay. What else?
Might be the same thing, but I think it's status.
Mm-hmm. Maybe someone else wants to type for me. This is really distracting. What? Yeah, money. I think that money is, I mean, we are, it's going really slow. I don't know why. Money, and I missed one, status. Go ahead, Larry.
No, I just, I'm not trying to put it in one word, but probably like not being exposed to the beggars and the poor people. Like,
Yes.
you know, the separation there.
Hmm? Insulated, yeah. You want to type? Okay. I was having an interesting time in my mind looking at that wording where it said enjoying himself in splendor every day. And I was just thinking about the way we use verbs like, you know, we dress ourselves, we feed ourselves,
Someone wants into yourself.
we enjoy ourselves. Cat, oh, good. I can't even see my mouse. Will you let cat in? Isn't it interesting to think of enjoyment as being something, my computer's getting really hot too. You do to yourself, like you're engaging in that to yourself, the enjoyment, or it can also be something you do of yourself. You know, he enjoyed himself, you know, like we can enjoy God. You can also enjoy yourself, like a self-centeredness. Yeah, exactly. Hi, Kat. Where's my mouse? There it is. Anything else you speculate here that he loved or was attached to?
I think it's something that the beggar laid at his feet.
Mm-hmm.
So I know I go out to my house 10 times a day. And someone how much
Self-indulged.
someone laid.
Yes. We're coming to you, Murray. Can't, too much lag. I can't see what I'm typing. So Mari, hold your thought there just a minute. I'm coming back to you because you can't hear when other people, it's like we have this weird sound.
I'm sorry if I interrupt. I can't hear when anybody else is talking.
I totally get that. Crystal was just saying about how the fact that he was laying at his gate meant that he had to see him every day coming and going to his house. And then the last point you made about that, Crystal, was like a sense of, what was the word of like pride and yeah, and lack of compassion. Mari, what was yours?
Self-indulged.
Yes, self-indulged. That totally fits with that. Insensitive. Isn't it easy to pick out other people's faults?
I was just thinking the same thing.
Exactly. Oh my goodness. Yeah, it's easy and it's a lot more
Can you try and fix what
fun.
was wrong with your computer?
I don't know how.
You probably have some weird wrong.
You want to look at it for me? Here, hang on. Let me scroll down a little.
Not be struggling with running.
But you're thinking about what is it that gives me in life a sense of meaning or a sense of significance? So you can take a moment and think about that. If you want to say it out, you can. Again, if you feel like I'm not sure I know what it is, or I'm not sure I want to say that in front of a group, that's fine too. That's all right. We'll work with it. So I'm usually try to be a somewhat open book. So I'll tell you, because I've tried to do a lot of digging around in this on myself. I think this is really a path that really leads towards liberation, to find this thing, to find these things underneath in us. So when I look at myself, for example, I see I have a strong motivation towards productivity. I love getting stuff done. And if I look at what's underneath that, it would be that I get a sense of significance out of feeling like I'm doing the right thing. I know what the right thing is to do, and I'm doing it and getting it done, hopefully doing it well. So the way I see that in myself and the way I think others see that in me, that would be examples of things that I would find are things that I'm attached to or that give me a sense of meaning or significance. So if you want to call out things that you see in yourself, you can. Like I say, you certainly don't have to. If you have it in your mind, though, you can kind of hang on to that because we're going to build on it in the next question.
I was looking
Maybe I won't do
this,
typing.
found myself thinking about, okay, what are the things that like are knee-jerk, like the desperate prayers kind of a thing? Okay,
Interesting.
those are the things that must mean an awful lot to me.
Yeah.
That I'm gonna, trigger to like, oh, help me. From the retreat, but just that idea of this comfortable existence, that my world is in order.
Yeah.
The people I love are good.
Yeah.
That's so huge, which I think gets, into the control thing too. And I despise that, and yet I hold tight to it.
Yeah. For the people who are on Zoom, I'm going to tell you what Sharon said. She said that for her, it's a sense of the comfort of being in a world of comfort, that like her world has order and comfort. And then that also kind of intertwines with a sense of control, like wanting to control that world and keep those things in control. And it's interesting, Sharon, like when I hear what you're saying, I can see how, I think there were elements of the rich man that in the rich man story too, right? Like he had his comfortable world. Surely it was at a level higher than probably most of the comforts we have. Nevertheless, but he had his comfortable world and he was trying to control that, like he wasn't it doesn't sound like he was letting those crumbs fall out to Lazarus. Maybe he was, but doesn't sound like it from the text. But yeah, comfortable existence and control. I'm not going to take notes on the computer because I think that's slowing it down. So. Anyone else see anything that you want to notice there?
Well, I'd say going along with the goal-oriented is it's not just getting it done, but it has to be done right. Like they get obsessed with having it. I want to say perfection, but I see the perfection in it, that it's, I'm not satisfied with it unless it's like I've covered every angle and anticipate everything so I can avoid having something go bad later.
Yeah.
So sort of controls.
Yeah. Tori was saying the sense of wanting to get things done right and knowing that they're not going to go wrong and bite her later, and that that kind of weaves in with a sense of control too. Does that capture that, Tori? Yeah. What you got, Ted?
I think the thing that is the most upsetting to me is when I'm misunderstood. Say the right thing to be able to reach. That's very difficult to do. Everybody's coming to the spot. So, being in your situation, how do you pick just the right words to grab everybody's heart?
So Ted's comment there is, for him, there's a sense of wanting to be understood well. What he's saying, he wants that to be understood, and that sense of communicating the right thing. And I almost hear like a sense of vulnerability in that. Like, I can't know your heart, so I can't know if I'm saying the thing that's going to connect with you, or if I'm hearing the thing that you're trying to say to me. Like, just that we're vulnerable to not even know if we're connecting and communicating as we are intending, or being understood the way we are wanting to be understood. The vulnerability in that.
I have one.
Yeah, Nura.
Pleasing people.
Pleasing people. Yeah, that's a big one, isn't it?
Yeah, that's a tough one too.
That's a tough one. It's so ingrained, isn't it? Like it goes so deep in your motivation. Like you don't even know it's happening.
You don't realize it.
Yeah, you don't even realize it. Pleasing people.
I
Mari?
don't know if it's, I don't know if it's as much about sense of meaning or significance, but if anything comes before Jesus in my thinking, it's an idol.
Yeah.
And that would be my health and well-being. I'm kind of like too focused on that.
Yeah.
Rather than what really the source of my health and well-being is. So the gift rather than the giver.
Yes, that's a good summary. Gift rather than giver. How about you, Kat? Do you have anything you want to throw into the mix?
Oh, man. I would say there are 2 points for me. I find comfort meeting other people's needs before mine. Which I know that is definitely something that Jesus asks us to do. And then also I desire to make other people happy. And that they kind of go hand in hand a little bit.
Yeah, I could see that, those going hand in hand. That would totally make sense.
Mhm.
It kind of fits with pleasing people, that, yeah, all kind of interwoven
Yeah.
there. Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. Anyone else have one they want to throw in?
I'd say for me, the only thing that really matters to me besides my relationship with Jesus is my children. Everything else. is like background things.
Well, I went way too far there. Right. Your children, and I mean, I think at large, people experience like their family connections. What are you thinking, Ted? Will you help me get to my spot? Right, like your children or family are so important to you, but how do you know, like, if it's good? I mean, if you're in a good place with them, or
Is that the happy thing?
meaning like pleasing people, that, yeah, right. Because even, thank you, Anna. It's interesting because it's nuanced, right? Like there's a part of loving your family that's really good and pure and godly and right, and what we're called to do. I mean, we've been given provision for the people we're to take care of. But there's also a part of that that can get tied into your ego. I mean, I'll speak for myself anyways, that like being, I can put on myself, on my mind, what I believe about myself is that I'm a good parent or I'm a good wife. So then that puts pressure on people who are close to me now, that they become part of my self-reinforcement. So, if they're doing great, then I get stokes for my ego. But if they are messing up, they are messing up, then there might even almost be like some resistance. Like I might have a resentment, or I might put an emotional barrier, or because now it's not just about my provision for her as her mother, as God provides for us as a parent. Now it's about, wait, what does this say about me? Because that ego that's underneath there. So when we think about our families being important to us, there are parts of that that are very pure, but there are also parts of that that can become very diluted with our ego, basically. So now you kind of thought a little bit about that. We're gonna move a next step into this. You can see on the screen the question. Find an example. This you don't have to say out loud. I mean, you can if you want to, but this is just for you. It will help you to move into the next questions. Find an example in the last 24 hours where you see this attachment in your life. So think back to the last 24 hours and, just looking at our list, some of the things that we noticed were a motivation to do things right, to be in control, to be understood, to please other people, to meet other people's needs. So kind of play your mind backwards. Maybe there's a time that comes immediately to your consciousness, or maybe you have to kind of step through the day, moving back from right now. Can you find a time in the last 24 hours where you saw that motivation at play in your thinking or in the way you were acting in a situation that came up? So I'm just going to take a moment of silence for you to think back through the last 24 hours, and you may find more than one, but try to have at least one in your mind. Carl, don't use the arrows. Oh, yeah, that works. There's that again. Okay. Everyone got one? Looks like we're pretty good. Now think about, you may think about that situation or thinking about it at large. When I want my attachment, what happens? What happens in my heart? What happens in my thoughts, my mind, my relationships? Now this part you can call out if you want. I think it's helpful, and this is one of the things Mari and I, when we were emailing, and Mari and I have talked about this before, how helpful it is to hear how other people process things. So it's part of the beauty of being in a group is that we can kind of learn from each other too. So to hear other people processing things is helpful. So if you want to, if you're comfortable, if something comes to your mind, you can call it out. I'll go first. When I think about my situation, one of the things I notice in reflecting is a sense of fear, that sense of like, kind of that need to control comes up because I'm afraid that things may go in a way that basically I'm going to feel like people will think I look stupid if it doesn't go the way, so that fear of what people would think of me. And that's kind of that feeling of wanting to clinch down on it or wishing that I could control it, whether you can or not. So that's one for me.
For me, Jesus goes away.
Jesus goes away. Tell us about that, Nura. That's really significant.
For me, that attachment, when it comes to people, this is with my relationship. So for me, that when it happened, and I didn't remember God, Jesus at that time, so I was struggling. I was like, I couldn't even go to my prayer yesterday.
Yeah.
So that's where I am struggling.
Yeah. So Nura said, I don't know how well you could hear her. She said when she gets in that place, Jesus goes away and she completely can lose sight of God. For example, when she was in this place, she felt like she couldn't even approach prayer. So that's really, and I do resonate with that too, that sense that Jesus goes away, even if it's just in the moment. If I'm having that sense of fear and control, I'm not living in a sense of trust and worship. I've lost my sense of trust and worship in that moment. Because it's like now, who said the word idol? Someone used the word idol. Was that you, Mari?
Yeah.
Because I've made an idol out of myself and my ego. Now I'm not worshiping God. I'm worried about how Martha looks.
I love that. When I get in that place, it's all about me again. It's self-preservation. However, I'm going to do that. Whether it's going to be to disengage.
Right. Right. So Sharon said that in that situation, it's all about me. And kind of what's my strategy going to be for managing that? Am I going to disengage? Am I going to eat the wrong foods, to make myself feel better or whatever?
For me, I think there's a resentment and impatience. People want to interrupt what I want to be doing or what I want to focus on, and then even if the things they're interrupting me about are important also, or totally reasonable.
Yeah. That's really good, Larry. Larry said a sense of resentment or impatience can pop up, and especially like say if you get interrupted, and even if it's a reasonable or a rational interruption, you can still feel resentment. And I would add, and if it's an irrational interruption, you can feel resentment. So because that's just funny that you mentioned that. That was literally one of the meditations I had this week, was noticing my annoyance to an interruption, and just processing that my knee jerk was to be annoyed when I got interrupted.
So is that answer pride and yourself?
I think it was, for me, my processing on that, and maybe different people have different motivations, but when I processed that frustration with the interruption, what I saw was my lens back to that productivity and focus. Like, because I love productivity, I love to be focused when I'm working. Like, I don't like a lot of distractions around me. I like, I just like, I just relish that. But then if there's like things popping up, people walking in, noises that like, I'm just like, but you see what's under that drive for productivity is trying to get my significance from what I'm getting done. And but the interruption is really usually someone I love, like far more important than a task. And certainly when Jesus fills me, I will love them more than myself. So yeah, that's a really good question, Ted.
I know, for me, it's avoid,
What was that word, Michelle?
avoid,
Oh, avoid.
isolate.
Yeah.
And reset.
And reset, that's interesting. So you pull back.
Sometimes I'm trying to get to a point.
Martha, can we still share on that? Oh, sorry, someone else was talking.
I'll be right with you, Kat.
Okay.
And why I've chosen to isolate myself as opposed to trying to rely on my own skill set to fix it.
Yeah. Yeah. So when you avoid and isolate, would you call that are you doing that in a healthy way, or is that your unhealthy natural response? And so you try to reset when you know you're doing it. Like sometimes we need to isolate, basically recollection, recollect ourselves. We have to get out of the situation, recollect ourselves with God, do a reset like that. Or are you saying, oh, well, no, I have an unhealthy sense of wanting to avoid and isolate, and I need to reset to deal with that part?
It's a combination of both.
Yeah, that makes sense. So you may have picked up from the conversation there. Michelle was saying for her, the reaction is to avoid and isolate and then to reset. Sometimes the avoidance and isolation is the unhealthy response that we have, like, oh, I just need out of it. Hey, I can't handle that. And sometimes it's the healthy one where you say, I really need to reorient to God. But either way, she wants to have that reset where she's really going to God to deal with that situation. Okay, Kat, we're back to you.
Hi. I didn't know Michelle was talking. Sorry
Yeah,
about
no,
that.
I understand. It's tough on your side.
Yeah. It actually, what I was going to mention is pretty similar to hers. I've had a lot of things spoken over me in my past and also presently as well.
Yeah.
And I've actually subconsciously owned it as my own voice. So they're pretty much they're passive attachments.
Oh, interesting.
And oh yeah. And just more and more things are being revealed to me, and in my heart I block God without realizing it until I'm at work in church and I'm just hearing just people. I think that's been just the hardest thing for me to trust, because of just so much horrible things. Like even this morning, stuff's been said to me at my place of living. And this is what God is definitely working with me on. And my thoughts in my mind are, I don't think I can do it, of being bold and courageous, even though I know I can be. And it has affected all my relationships. Work, it affected me, not at church, different jobs. But those are attachments that I firmly believe God is pruning me on right now. And it's very painful because sometimes I don't even know why I'm getting certain thoughts in my head, or why I would say something like, because that's not me to say that. And so that's why it's so important to really know who you are surrounding yourself with, what you're listening to and reading.
Yeah, right. So to not, you're being intentional about not letting other people's voices drown out God's voice in your life.
Yep.
And not hearing them instead of God. Yeah, that's
Exactly.
really good. Thank you, Kat. How about you, Mari? Did you have anything on that you wanted to throw in?
When I want my attachment that gives me a sense of feeling good, or that I really want, it becomes like a tunnel vision that I have to have this. It's not even reasonable or logical anymore. So God is out the window. Jesus is out the window. I want what I want because I have to have it.
Yes.
And not only control and even manipulate the situation, because it's like almost like my life is depending on it, that I have to have this, that I'm reaching for.
Yeah.
It becomes very like I push for it, because I feel like that attachment is something that I have to have, which is a lie, of course, from the enemy. But when you give it a little bit of room, it just expands and it becomes bigger than what it really is. I don't know if that makes any sense.
That makes so much sense. I think you put that to words so well. And I think in all of our attachments that does happen. They take on a life of their own, and your pursuit, you get this momentum that's just like, it's just kind of ridiculous. And I mean, I think even in fights, especially when Michael and I used to fight when we were first married, because I was only 20 when we got married. I was just a kid. And we'd fight, and I'd get into a fight, and I'd get so into the fight that I'd start fighting. Like, I wouldn't even remember what the original thing was. I just had like this fight all amped up in me. And it's just like, I've lost control of myself. I don't know. I mean, but it's that to say, I think it's true of our attachments at large, that they do get this life and they get ingrained in us and they just pull us forward. I think that was very well said, Mari. Thank you.
I got another question.
Yeah, what do you have, Ted?
Baggage.
Tell us more about baggage.
Yeah. Not living in the moment.
Yeah.
Pretty much.
Yeah.
Who does that?
Yeah. Yeah.
That determines what we do, how we act.
Yeah.
It's irrational.
Yeah. Ted's talking about baggage, the effect that baggage can have, and the way that it can shape, if we're not intentionally acknowledging it, the way it can shape our current behavior, even obviously in an irrational way. Yeah, absolutely. We carry that stuff with us, and if we don't look at it, it just rides along for free. Right there, carrying those bags.
Misunderstood.
Yeah, exactly. Misunderstood. Okay, now we're going to look, and we're going to transition into this next question. What would happen if I replaced my attachments with you? This is you, God, not you, someone in this room. If it were explosively true that you, God, were my true love, what would happen in my heart? What would happen in my thoughts and mind? What would happen in my relationships? You see the vision part of reality and vision coming in here. What would it look like in my life if it were explosively true that God was my true love, that he was my true attachment, and he replaced the attachments that I've been making out of those other things I love in my life? Explosively true. Explosive meaning like the normal real reality limits you put on stuff, don't put them there. Like, if it couldn't be true that you were attached to the thing that you're currently more attached to than Jesus, if that couldn't be true, it were just completely true of you through every fiber that God was your true love and your main attachment.
So I know I shared with one of the kids.
Yeah.
But no, the Lord brought me so far. I just want to say that, so far. But I have a 3-year-old, and so I've been rebonding with her since October, February. and she's been coming home for like the last month and a half or so, so getting acclimated to home with mom and stuff. And the last few weeks, she's been saying things that are, she's starting to feel more comfortable and opening up and talking about what's going on with dad. And yesterday, some stuff happened at party time. And immediately, emotion after emotion just rushes in. My armpits are sweating like I just ran 5 miles. And I had this urge to like act now. And I mean, it was a physical compulsion to do something. And I'm cooking chicken. While I was doing it. But I did not know. This, and I'm like, okay, what do I do? What do I do right now? Because I'm ready. And I realized my instant reaction in any of these situations, I've learned that I just go straight. It's like an automatic. I'm going to God. We're talking about it. I'm not going to do nothing. I'm going to God first. And I just started praying, making chicken. And I went in my room and I took a moment, and the Lord said to me, he basically was like, my faith is never changing. My faith is the root and the core of my situation. All of these emotions are constantly changing, right? I'm human. And those emotions are totally separate than my faith. And what it was saying was, I have to trust in the Lord.
Yeah.
My compulsion to want to react, my compulsion to want to take control and protect, and every single thing that I want to do as a mom, right? Or as a parent, or any normal, rational human being. I realized that I had to lay it down, and I have to let God work out what God's working out right now, and that I have to be patient in my faith and let it go, even though I do not want to. That I'm so close to the victory at the end that I have to trust that the Lord's just gonna just be still and just watch what's happening. I tell you, it's so funny we're talking about this right now, because it's like it's literally the definition. I didn't know what to do. Right away I emailed my lawyer, and then I took some time with God, and I emailed back. I didn't do anything.
Could you explain about the chicken?
It was a hard moment. It was a really hard moment, but I was reminded. I write to God. That's my go-to. I pray a lot too. I write letters. I pull out, dear Lord, like sincerely. So I have lots and lots of letters to God, and I just went in the room, and sometimes I just yell, and I'm just like, what is going on? Like, why is this happening? Why is this? Why do I have to sit here and watch? And it's like,
Yeah.
This is a battle. This is his battle. It's not my battle, because let me tell you, I had the whole thing planned out what I was going to do, and everything. This is what's going to happen, and this is what I'm going to do, and this is how I'm going to fit in. It's like I have no power, right? I have no control over it. I'm doing exactly what I'm supposed to be doing. I'm doing exactly what he wants me to do. And even though it's not my idea of God's plan, that's where my faith is. Right? My faith is still, what he's doing, which is underneath that.
Yeah. Okay, I'm going to do a really horrible job at summarizing what Crystal just said. But I know you guys can't hear her completely. So I would say the summary that I would say is that she had her 3-year-old over. She's just gotten custody back of her 3-year-old recently. She was over this weekend, and there was a situation that made her feel like her 3-year-old someone may be doing things to her 3-year-old that they shouldn't be doing. And she had, would that be a fair summary, Crystal? And she had almost an explosive emotional reaction. You guys know how it is when like you're sweating and you're mad. It just, all these emotions, just a lot of volatility. And you know, the protective instincts just set in. She was like, I got to take care of this. I got to do this. I've got to take action. I need to call my lawyer. And, but the Lord came to her with a sense of faith that was much deeper than all of the wild emotions on top, and came to her with, well, he didn't just come to you, you also came to him. You went and were very intentional about praying and doing the reset. And you, in that process, he brought you to a place that you didn't want to come to, of faith and of stillness and of trust, and knowing that he was going to that he's brought you through this journey so far already. He's been so good to you, and you know that he will take care of this. So then, instead of choosing litigation and trying to lean into human strength that you didn't think he was calling you to, you're coming with a sense of trust. And your point is that, one of your points was that all of those emotions are part of our humanity, but that we can kind of submit those to God and go to our faith at a deeper level and let him guide us, not our emotions, not the craziness of our initial reaction, but letting him guide us. Did I miss anything? Yeah, that was beautiful. It was that's a beautiful analogy. Because we're talking about replacing your attachments, like this sense of protection. Your children, I got to take care of my children. Yeah. So replacing that attachment with your attachment to God, and recognizing that he's the father, right? He is their father too, just like he is your father. And his sense of protection is all the greater. Yeah.
I can't see. He already has the victory planned out.
Yes.
He's already been walking me through it. So
yes.
I can't even deny that at all. So
yeah.
To say it's going to end here is just ridiculous.
Yeah.
And even though I can't see where he's taking me, I can see how far he's already taken me.
Yeah.
To intervene right at this point
Yeah.
of my human emotions and my reactions and everything was just totally off track what God's trying to do, and keep me in the same cycle
Yeah.
that I just trusted him to walk me out of.
Yeah.
So it was definitely, I was just, I laid in bed last night. I was like, it's 7:30, God, I'm done for the day.
Yeah, 7:30 was enough of a day. Time for bed. Yeah. Chocolate chip cookies in bed. It doesn't get any better than that's comfort. That's good comfort. Yeah, but I mean, it's a good point that if you had tried to take things into your own hands instead of trusting where you thought God wanted you to be peaceful and still and submitted to him, that you almost would have been, it's almost like an ingratitude for everything he's done for you already,
like,
kind of in his face.
Everything, but why not trust me now?
Yeah.
And I mean, I'm 30 something now. But in my 20s, I was so impulsive and so reactive all the time.
Yeah.
And yesterday I was like, God, you know that I don't handle people, handling my children very well. And like, I am pretty forward and aggressive. Like, do you realize this? Because this situation is not in my character to do what you're asking me to do.
Yeah.
But right,
Yeah.
I'm gonna I'll tell you what, that wrath of God is serious.
Mhm.
God is gonna see it through the Lord and trust the Lord, and I'm just going to relax and know that he loves my kids more than I do.
Yeah. I think those are interesting words you used. Your natural nature is impulsive and reactive, and you see that when God comes into your life and he's truly your first attachment, that those natural knee-jerk reactions, he's changing those.
Right. So you can see them.
Yeah, you can see
You
it.
have a different set of eyes. Like
Yeah.
you see yourself
Yeah.
from how he sees.
Yes.
And he knows. So it's like you just have to
Yeah.
And maybe that's why it's so different, is so you can see it's him versus.
Yes.
Yeah.
That would never be you.
Yeah, it would never be.
That's him. That's all him. Yeah.
That's right.
Well, I have an example that's kind of on a much smaller scale, not as dramatic, but more kind of at the deep internal core. But when you talk about impulsive and reactive, when I think about if he were explosively, truly my biggest attachment, one of the things that changes in me as I attach more to him and doesn't change when I'm not attached to him is a sense of defensiveness. So, for example, Anna and I were walking in, we were having a conversation, and not that this was particularly unique, it probably happens a lot.
You started the story and I go, this is gonna be an Anna story.
She knew the story was going to be about her or us, actually. But if we were having a conversation where I don't even remember the exact specifics of it. But she said something that made me feel challenged. And so my initial reaction is a defensive reaction. But I think that when I'm really attached to God, when she makes me feel challenged, that's actually a gift, right? Like that is part of how God is going to speak to me, is through the challenges that people give me. And of course, she knows me better than almost anyone other than the other handful of people that live in my house. And she's really good at challenging. So God has given me a great gift in her. So, but I think that that's one thing that when feeling challenged, if I am completely attached to God first and not ego, I'll just be like, oh yeah, like, tell me about that. Thank you so much. Like, and not just in the superficial way that we say thank you so much when we receive feedback, in the real, true, deep way that says, I'm not threatened by that, because my significance doesn't come from my human accomplishment. I can be an utter failure and he will completely love me. So that would be one for me. I don't know. What do you guys think it would look like if it were explosively true that he were your true love?
Martha, I agree with you. Actually, everything you said 100%. And because that's my hope every single day, every interaction that I have with others that I personally know, become acquainted with, and especially with myself. It's so important to feel that connection, because I mean, that's what's most important. And then you're able to be there with other people in the way that God is intending for you to be with them on that day. And it's not in the future, because all we have is right now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I love what you said, Kat, when you said we're able to be with people in the way God intended us to be with them.
Mhm.
Because, when I get defensive with Anna, that's not the way God intended me to be with her.
No.
And I'm hurting her and I'm hurting myself and I'm hurting what God could be doing in between us. So I think that's such a beautiful way to say that. While we're in the Zoom house, Mari, do you have anything on that one?
All the attachments that are not Jesus, it's bondage. There's things that weigh you down. And if I didn't have those, and I truly believed that Jesus is my true love, it would be absolute freedom.
Yeah.
It would be freedom not to be concerned about, like you said, the word trivial attachment. What does this matter in the long run? What does this even matter next week? But at that moment, it just seems so important. But if it was explosively true all the time, it would be just absolute freedom.
Yeah.
Freedom to accept the situation, even if it's not the most pleasant thing. I would accept that God is working in this situation, no matter what it looks like right now. I don't have to be compulsive about anything. I don't have to try to control anything. I don't have to manipulate anything. I can just be myself, allow everybody else to be themselves, and the situations just to be. It's freedom.
Okay, we'll go Ted and then we'll go Nura. Thank you, Mari. That was beautifully articulated. Okay, Ted, you're up next.
What's yelling, screaming at me is insecurity.
Insecurity, yes.
And I'm going to hell because I'm watching this program. It's called New Girl. Anybody heard?
No.
It's got a strange name. It's got they move eyes in. And there's one person in this apartment that makes money, and you know, they all grew up together. They went to school together, and they all expose all their insecurities and over the top ways. So, and you know, and secular ways, which is the part I'm not proud of, but it really is funny. You know, all this craziness in the world, I turn, and it just seems like there's a new episode. I think there's 30 episodes of this one situation. And it just builds on each other, and you know, I get so depressed, and then I forget, oh my God, there's all these other crazy people out there.
They've got problems, bad problems. Ted was just talking about insecure, what he's hearing, and a lot of this is the thought of insecurity. And he was telling us about a show called New Girl, which he's not proud of, but it does a really good job of showing insecurities. And there's apparently quite a garden variety of insecurities of the characters on this show. Okay, Nura, you're up.
When I let God work on the situation, right? So sometimes, when you are in the situation, when you are in the attachment, I don't let God in, and when I give the situation to God, I said, okay, God, what are you trying to teach me today? You know, what's happening? And I share this with you at my work. You know, they were giving a reduction to one of my employees, and the person who was giving, they told me, like, this person is very hard to work with. She's so prideful. She's like this, that, and this. And it's like, I was like, immediately went to defensive mode. I didn't want to. It's like, even I told the person, you know, I don't want to stroke anybody's ego. I don't want to. Why do I have to, you know, do this? And with the all professionals, we all have to treat ourselves, you know, respectfully, and you know, respect each other's work, right? That's what I said. And I'm like, this person was not willing to come down or even to have a meeting with me to talk about it or anything. And I was struggling a lot. I was struggling so much. And I'm like, I was not letting any advice from anybody. I was like, no, I am right in this. You know, I'm willing to work with this person. It's not coming down. That's how I felt it. And I came home. I sat down and I prayed. And I prayed and I said, God, I don't know if you are trying to teach me. Maybe I'm not humble here. You're trying to teach me something. Please help me. And I opened up, and whatever you're trying to teach me, I wanted to be open. I want to be. I'm like you, always writing letters to God. Dear Lord.
Right.
Every day, I have like 4 or 5 books already done. Every day, because I think that's the way I tell them God, and I say, like, this is what I'm going through, this is what's happening.
Yeah.
And it helps me to calm down, relax a little bit more, and hear God's voice.
Yes.
And he told me, you know, it doesn't matter. It's not about the other person. It's about you. What I'm trying to teach you.
Ooh, that's a hard one.
Yes, it was very hard. I could not. I didn't know that little bit of pride in me. I really didn't know. I had a little bit still there, you know, and stuff. So I ended up setting up a meeting with the person. She declined it. And God works mysterious ways. So her manager set up a meeting with all 3 of us. And they told us, okay, we want to work with you. And I said, I want to work with you too. And I think when you let go of that attachment, it's a complete the obedience to God.
Yeah.
It helps.
Yeah.
I think that's what I learned. Even a little bit, you don't realize. I don't think I realized it. You know, I didn't know I had. I think I'm very humble person.
Right.
And he told me that, you know, this last week. And I shared this with
Yeah. Yeah. So a summary of what Nura's experience was with that was she had an experience at work where someone was given corrective action and they were basically had a reputation of being a very prideful person. And so they didn't want to have this conversation. But Nura said her own initial reaction was one of defensiveness. So she went home and she sat down and prayed and relaxed and listened to God. And she said that she heard God tell her, it's not about them, it's about you, which was a hard message to hear. And in that, she was able to see that she actually was bringing some pride to the situation. And so then the next day at work or later at work, the manager set up a meeting with all three of them, and Nura was able to come to it with a very open-hearted attitude. And that when she let go of that attachment, she was and embraced this attitude of obedience. She saw a real difference in that God showed her about herself, the heart that needed changed, when she wanted to change someone else, that he brought it to her and brought her that change. Anyone else want to weigh in on this one?
I think it kind of hits on a lot of the stuff that's already been said. But just the freedom to truly engage with other people and to know that engaging with other people is more important than what I want to get done or what I want to focus on. I just marvel at, I watch Jesus when I read through the Gospels, and he's heading out. He just wants to have some time alone. He's exhausted, he's tired, and some people come and they have needs, and he always puts them first. He's like, well, my exhaustion will have to wait. These people have some needs, and I'm going to love them, and I'm going to see them, and I'm going to engage with them. And that's what I would love to be in that place.
Yeah.
People are always more important than me and my needs and what I want to do.
Yeah, that's really good. So part of what Larry's vision is of what this attachment would look like is that you're really able to engage with other people. And he's using the example of how Jesus responds in the Gospels when people would come to him with a need. Even if he's on his way to go have time alone with God, he'll stop and he'll take care of their needs. He always puts their needs above his needs. Just that prioritization. So now we're going to move to the next question related to this, which is when you think back about the attachments that we identified at the beginning, and you have your kind of specific example in your mind, and you thought about what it would look like if you were truly attached to God or to Jesus, the Holy Spirit, and not your other attachments. So now bring your mind to this place. How is Jesus more reliable and worthy of my love than my attachments? So it seems like kind of an obvious question. I mean, you're like, well, he died for me. But sometimes we keep that at a superficial level. So kind of the more you can let your mind soak on the beauty of his reliability and his worthiness and specific things that make him more reliable and more worthy than your attachments. So as you're thinking about that, you can call things out. If you are thinking of things that show how much more reliable, how is he specifically more reliable and specifically more worthy of your attachment than the other things that you love?
I won't be here if God is.
Say it again, I couldn't hear you too well.
I won't be here if God didn't.
Yeah, meaning you wouldn't
Breathe on me.
exist
Yeah, I won't
physically,
exist.
or
Yes.
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 And Nura said we wouldn't even be here if it weren't for God. Our existence depends on him. Yes.
Any attachment other than God is on earth.
Yep.
Every single one of them.
That's right.
So I know for me personally, when I was in my 20s, I started off real gung-ho about my career. And at 25, I got a job. I left this one job and I was making $40,000. And then I got hired at this other job and I went to $80,000. So one jump, I doubled my income.
Big income jump.
At 25.
Oh, crazy.
Terrible.
No 25-year-old should have to go through that.
But at that time, I'm young and I'm gung-ho. I had a new car and I had a new house and I had a boat and a camper and I went all out, and let me tell you, God was not the center of my heart at that time. He was really not even in the list of priorities. And you know, he let me have fun for a little while, and I crashed and burned, and I lost everything. The job, the house, the car, my kids. I lost everything. He took it all away.
Wow.
And I'll never forget that lesson that I had when I was very young. But yeah, that was this kind of reminds me of that, like that my little life I've had in my whole career. But you know, I am very blessed to say that the Lord has restored so much more than I lost. My children probably being last. But, so that it kind of reminds me of, I mean, I had money, it was more important, more important than even my children at one time. And how I look to other people was more important. And just everything that the world makes look pretty and nice just was my attachment. All of it.
Yep.
Men, things, money,
job,
all of it. I think I covered all of it.
Yeah. That's such a good example. I wish you guys could have heard every word that Crystal just said, but in summary, she, at 25 years old, she was very career driven, and she got she doubled her pay from 40,000 to 80,000 at 25 years old. And a 25-year-old with that much money is dangerous. And she just, I mean, it reminds me of the story of Solomon in the Old Testament, right? Where he had all of the wealth, and he had how many hundreds of wives? She didn't have hundreds of wives, I don't think, but she did enjoy men. So, you know, there was the men, and then she bought the house and the camper and the boat and the whatever money could buy, you know, appearance, everything. All of the things that we chase after in life. She was at a very early age given the opportunity. And then she said she crashed and burned. She had fun, but she crashed and burned and lost it all, like the house and the camper and even her children were taken from her. So now we're starting to sound like Job. At this point, we're taking in a radical turn. But what's beautiful is that she's talking about, she's really capturing the essence of this question, which is how unworthy and unreliable the things we chase after are. See, she got everything she was chasing after, and she made attachments to all of them, and they all left her desolate. They just, as she said, she crashed and burned, and she saw that they were completely unreliable. And now Jesus has come to her and has shown her that he is the true and only reliable thing.
When I first found the Lord, it was not that long ago, a little over a year ago, but I remember thinking, I'm gonna go read Job and see what happened with Job, because I'm gonna read the whole book and I want to know what happens at the end. And in the end, I was like, it's not what I was hoping for.
She said that she went back and read Job and found the end a little disappointing because she was hoping for a different ending. But I would just, on that note, I would just encourage you, as you're doing prayer of recollection, to make that point that we were just on, a point to keep coming back to and soaking on, is the worthiness of Christ. I mean, you can think about this while you're driving. You can think about this while you're cooking. The worthiness of Christ is probably the most valuable thing you can spend your mental energy on ever. So anytime, if you're seeing negative thoughts come in your mind, try thinking about the worthiness of Christ. That said, I think it's interesting to revisit this question at the end. Jesus, why have you shown this to me right now? So, you know, we've talked a lot about kind of current circumstances, what happened in the last 24 hours, but if you step back and look at your life more broadly, why do you think Jesus might be showing this to you right now? So if you see something, you can feel free to call that out.
I think this is a turning point for me.
Turning point for you, Kat? Tell us about that.
Yeah. Because literally everything in my life is all dependent on how I choose to view it. Yeah. And either it could be the same way as like what the last question was saying, as an attachment.
Yep.
Or am I going to instead just focus on him, and that's it.
Yeah, that's so good. Thank you. Mari, do you have anything?
Probably the comparison of how futile it is to try to control and manipulate your life or your situation, because it's so untrustworthy. I have about as much control over anything as a 2-year-old does. That's why they have a father who takes care of things.
Good.
So I might as well just be like that child and trust.
That's good. That's really good. Anyone else have anything you want to put in here?
I'm going to be very vulnerable.
You're gonna be what?
I'm
Oh,
gonna
be
be
vulnerable. Okay, Nara's gonna be vulnerable. Nara, our hearts are all open to you.
Sometimes you think you are the only person going through those situations, right? Or you are going through the, and sometimes, the pride part comes in, and I'm just going to say, like, you think you are the only person who close to God. Like today, I hearing every single one of their situations and the experience with God, and it's like, I felt like I'm not alone.
Yes, that's beautiful.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and I think that's why I'm here.
Yes.
That's why he brought me here to do this today.
Yes. I don't know if you could hear Nara very well. It was just beautiful. She said that to experience the comments that everyone has made in this conversation today has shown her that she's not alone in her loving God. That sometimes when you get into your love relationship with God, you can feel alone. Like, we don't always get to connect at that spiritual soul level with other people and know that other people are also experiencing. It's just, God said that we're a family and we're brothers and sisters. And I think that's so beautiful when we can experience that. There's nothing better to be connected on.
Martha?
Yeah.
It's just amazing how you hear people.
Hmm.
Isn't it
Yeah,
something?
yeah.
I'd love to hear what you reflect back.
Aw. It's all anything good that you see is all the gift of Jesus.
Gives you some good discernment.
Oh,
Yes.
it's all him.
Now, I could have just had it like 15 years ago.
Right. Right.
I don't know whether we will be at that, like, for me, like when I was even 15 or 20 years old.
Yeah.
I don't think I would have been this much open.
Right.
I think what we go through, the shift us, right?
Yes.
Like, and God took us through for a reason to teach all of this.
Yes. Yes.
I've been asking God a lot of stuff lately. What is my purpose in this? Because I look at it either all the suffering that I go through, or I can see all the blessings too. But it's like, what is the purpose? What is my? I got a lot of years left. Like, make them better.
So the conversation here is about, it's too bad that some we're kind of thinking like, man, it's too bad that God, why did you wait so many years to show this to me, God? Like, couldn't you have brought this 15 or 20 years ago? Or, but then also the realization that those things that he's done in our lives, he is going to use, and that, I guess I would say those years aren't wasted, that he will redeem those. And I that's such a churchy word. I even hate to say it. There's got to be a better normal language way to say that, but he will make good of those, and that he will get glory from that. Okay, so it's 2:32. So I don't think we'll be doing check-in, although if you'd like to check in or if you would like prayer, you can stay and I would be happy to visit and pray with any of you. But I feel like we've basically done our check-in already, right? But like not just at the superficial level of, what happened last week? I'm trying to buy a car and it kind of sucks. But at the deep level of what is Jesus really doing in your heart. So we're going to close with this prayer. This prayer on the screen is from the Transformation in Christ, Dietrich von Hildebrand's Transformation in Christ book. A little modification on his wording here. You may not want to pray it until you read it, because after you read it, you may not want to pray it. I'm half joking and I'm half not joking. It's a hard prayer. It's a pretty hard prayer. And the first time I read these words, they left a hard taste in my mouth. Like, God, I don't know if I'm ready to pray that. But I remember I look back at my journal, the first day I read these words was on October 26th of last year. So it's been 3-4 months maybe now. But he's been really working in me to try to welcome this. So let me read the prayer for us here, this prayer for shattering our attachments. It says, Jesus, I pray that I will not resist, and in fact, that I will even welcome the shattering of my attachments to a more trivial world where I have a snug and cozy home in my everyday existence. Jesus, we ask you to take us by the hand into the presence of God. We praise you, Jesus. So I would invite you to make that prayer a part of your moment by moment life. As you notice those attachments, just welcoming him and shattering them. And then the second part about praying for Jesus to lead you into the presence of God is really that meditating on his worthiness. So as you let go of the old attachments, you have something much more beautiful to attach to. So on that note, I will say we're going to close. And like I say, if you want to stick around, if you want prayer or connection, you certainly may. But happy Super Bowl day, everyone.
Bye.
Bye. May the best man win.
I definitely want to stay on, or should I call you, Martha? Because I definitely feel moved on this.
Okay, that sounds good. No, you can just stay on.
Okay.
And I'm going to stop the recording. That's a great idea. Where do I do that?
Cool.
The dots. Oh, the dots. Here we go.